Welcome back, crew, to Boats vs. Haulover, where Man and Machine take on Mother Nature down at Haulover Inlet, Miami, Florida. And if you can't tell from these images, the jetty's completely soaked, which means Haulover's firing today. And I got a feeling the jetty's not going to be the only thing soaked by the end of the day, as a couple of our captains are probably going to wind up wet as well. But let's go ahead and get our competition started, and we're going to start off here in the first round, featuring none other than the Red Top Legend himself. And our guy is notorious for coming out here and slaying Haulover Inlet. Let's see how he fares today in these pretty rough conditions. We got over 20-mile-an-hour winds, an outgoing tide. Seas are probably 6 foot. There's definitely a small craft advisory in effect, and, well, my man's out here in a 19-foot boat. And I'm gonna be honest, I'm a little surprised at how well him and the boat are handling the conditions. He has taken some spray over the bow, so that getting wet part we talked about earlier has definitely already happened to our captain here, but overall, actually looks pretty solid. Let's go look at the sky cam, and here we can see right here where we took that spray over the bow, kind of just catches him off guard a little bit, has to turn away from it, but keeps the boat moving and keeps pounding out. From this angle, you can really see how big the waves are as the boat comes down the back. Now in this situation, it's a tough call. Our guy did get wet, and he does wind up pulling the patented Haulover U-turn shortly after this and coming back in, which puts me in a difficult spot because typically he looks good. I would want to give him the win on this one, but pulling that U-turn and going back in immediately after this typically is a loss, and that's the way I'm going to have to go. And that's going to give Haulover a 1-0 lead as we move into the second round of our contest. And here we're going to feature a Cobia, and man, this is a risky one. Coming out of Haulover on a day like today, with this many people in the bow, things could go drastically wrong pretty quickly in this situation. With that extra weight up there, you increase your chances of stuffing the bow. The problem I have with that on a day like today, it's so heavy out here. If you wind up stuffing the bow and filling it up with water, you could find yourself in a whole lot of trouble really quickly, taking way more than just one wave over the bow. But so far, the crew looks pretty good. They're battling their way out, doing what they got to do to keep the bow high, and they're even taking kind of a slow roll approach, so there's not a whole lot of throttle behind this one either, which is kind of surprising. But here we paused. Are we going to do it? I think, yep, we're going to see the old Haulover U-turn coming back in, and I don't blame them. It's an awfully rough day to be rolling around offshore with this many people on the boat, and you can see Haulover's pushing them around there at the end. But this crew, as we see when they were working their way out, actually does a really good job of staying fairly dry in these rough conditions. And I'm going to be honest, this Cobia kind of surprised me. When I saw this boat coming out, it's not the biggest vessel we've seen come out today, but it's handling it like a much bigger boat, which is pretty impressive. But here we can see the moment where the crew finally takes pause and realizes, well, there's nothing good that's going to happen out here outside the mouth of Haulover today, and we might as well go ahead and roll it back in. But they're going to have to battle this heavy following sea as they try and come back in. This is kind of like our first contestant today. The crew really didn't do that bad, especially for as bad of a day as it is out here. But because they're pulling the Haulover U-turn, I have no choice but to give this crew the loss, and the boats are going to go down 0-2 pretty quickly to Haulover Inlet. But even with that said, this crew obviously still pretty happy to see the camera, and that's going to bring us to the third round of our contest. As we mentioned, Haulover already has a 2-0 lead. The boats have to make a comeback here, and we're going to have a cigarette stepping in the ring to try and do battle with the inlet. And here we go, our crew's going to start to lay into the throttle on this one, and it looks like we're going to take that moderate slow roll approach. We're going to give it just enough throttle to get the bow up in the air to try and prevent this thing from stuffing as we work our way out, which is probably the correct approach for a vessel like this on a day like today. I mean, it is just heavy seas, and every one of these boats we've seen come out easily could stuff the bow if they're not careful. Our captain is working his way out, but Haulover's throwing everything she's got at him, and man, they are taking an absolute pounding as they work their way out the inlet. Haulover just keeps throwing and throwing. There is spray going everywhere, and they are getting nailed with some big hits as they try and come out. This crew can't quite get her up on plane, and man, they take a heavy right hook right there. That one really set them off course. We're going to look at this one in the replay. They're coming out, again, just bobbing up and down, Haulover throwing everything they have at them, and really taking a pretty heavy pounding as they try and work their way out. But things appear to be okay. The captain's taking it pretty good up until right around this point, and here we're going to see it happen. Haulover throws a sucker right hook, knocks him off course, and unfortunately for this crew, I'm going to give Haulover the win in this one, and that means Haulover's going to take the win in this episode. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Boats vs. Haulover. If you did, please check out our other content. We have Wavy Boats, who does some great things down at the inlets. My channel, Broncos Guru, does some great comedy boating videos there as well. And of course, we got the Miami Boat Ramps channel that focuses on all the hilarity that happens in the boat ramps in South Florida. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here.